Humanity has officially lost the fight against climate change according to renowned environmentalist David Suzuki, and the data suggests he might be right. In July 2025, these words sent shockwaves across the globe as we confronted a reality many had spent decades trying to avoid. Carl Sagan once noted that extinction is the rule while survival is the exception, and as we approach the end of the first quarter of the 21st century, the question is no longer if we will face a collapse but when. Some experts suggest that billions could face starvation within the next decade following a multi-breadbasket failure. While it would be easier to search for a climate silver bullet, the scientific consensus suggests that no such miracle exists. Instead, we are left to examine a history of missed opportunities and a series of warnings that went unheeded by those with the power to act. The story of our failure is written in the acronyms of international diplomacy, starting with the establishment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 1988. Since then, we have seen the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention, the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, and the 2015 Paris Agreement. Each was heralded as a turning point, yet each failed to stop the upward trajectory of global emissions. The Paris Agreement in particular was supposed to be the moment the human race saved itself by pledging to limit warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. However, current predictions now place us on a path toward 3 or even 4 degrees by the end of the century. The most recent climate summits have continued this trend of failure, with world leaders unable to commit to a meaningful phase out of fossil fuels despite the escalating crisis. To understand the scale of this disaster, we must look at the threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. This figure represents the average global temperature increase above pre-industrial levels, typically defined by the period between 1850 and 1900. By late 2024, we officially shattered this limit, reaching 1.55 degrees of warming. This is not just a statistical milestone but a threshold that triggers catastrophic changes in our weather systems. We are already seeing the results in events like Hurricane Melissa, which devastated Jamaica in 2025. This storm was fueled by ocean temperatures nearly 1.5 degrees above average, making it twice as intense as it would have been in a pre-industrial world. Heat-related deaths have surged to over 500,000 per year, and wildfire smoke now claims hundreds of thousands of lives annually. The atmospheric data is even more sobering. In June 2025, carbon dioxide levels hit a record high of 427 parts per million. The last time our atmosphere held this much carbon was 3 million years ago during the Pliocene epoch. Back then, temperatures were up to 4 degrees warmer and sea levels were 25 meters higher than they are today. The only reason we are not yet living in those conditions is the natural time lag between carbon emissions and their full thermal impact. We are essentially living on borrowed time, experiencing the climate of the past while the emissions of the present bake in a much hotter future. Despite 40 years of warnings, emissions are not just rising, they are accelerating with no peak in sight. Beyond temperature and carbon, we are also breaching the fundamental life support systems of the planet known as planetary boundaries. Scientists have identified 9 of these boundaries that keep Earth stable, and as of 2026 we have crossed 7 of them. These include climate change, biodiversity loss, land system change, freshwater use, biogeochemical flows, novel entities like chemical pollution, and most recently ocean acidification. When we push these systems beyond their red lines, we risk triggering abrupt and irreversible environmental shifts. For example, the acidification of our oceans has already pushed warm water coral reefs past their point of stability. These reefs support a quarter of all marine species and nearly 1 billion people, yet they are now undergoing a mass die-off that could see them disappear entirely. The frustration of this situation is compounded by the fact that the responsibility is not evenly shared. Research shows that just 20 state-owned and private fossil fuel companies are responsible for 1/3 of all global emissions since 1965. While these corporations report billions in profits, they continue to receive massive government subsidies totaling nearly $1 trillion annually. The concept of the individual carbon footprint was actually popularized by fossil fuel giants to shift the burden of guilt onto the public. While we are encouraged to recycle and reduce our personal energy use, the industrial machines driving the crisis continue to operate with near impunity. Is there any hope left in this narrative of collapse? Some scientists suggest a strategy of overshoot where we temporarily exceed the 1.5-degree limit and use massive carbon removal technologies to bring temperatures back down by 2100. This would require an unprecedented global effort to achieve net negative emissions. We would need to deploy every tool available from solar and wind power to direct air capture and reforestation. The cost of renewable energy has plummeted by 85% since 2010, making a transition technically feasible if the political will existed. However, relying on unproven technologies to save us in the future is a dangerous gamble when we are already failing to meet the targets of the present. The real value of individual action today is not found in the carbon saved by a single person but in the collective pressure it places on the system. When millions of people change their habits, it signals to policymakers and corporations that the status quo is no longer acceptable. It builds a climate-conscious culture that demands systemic change. We may have lost the battle to keep the planet under 1.5 degrees, but every tenth of a degree of warming we prevent saves millions of lives and protects countless species. The Earth is resilient and humanity has a history of surviving the unthinkable, but that survival depends on our willingness to confront the truth of our situation. We are currently living through the most dangerous decade in human history, where the decisions made today will echo for thousands of years. While the battle for a pristine climate is over, the fight for a survivable future has only just begun. Thanks for watching.